I had this whole thing playing in my head the whole time, and then here I can't even do it. What up? What up? Welcome to Black Jeopardy.
Welcome to what?
Welcome to Black Jeopardy. I'm your host, Feston Mang. Oh, just kidding. What up? What up? Welcome to the Campfire Podcast. I'm Feston Mankanamba. This is Isaiah Estrada. On top of this video, you see the Yadaos from your, that's Sander in your white. That's Nate. That's his wife, Kirstan. We have the Yadao trio with us. And if you can see, Sander is back. So good to have that back. Today we're in Romans. We're just going to do a little Bible study, talk about what we see from the Word, what God is speaking to us. This just came about last Sunday, so it was a quick turnaround, even for the Yadao. So we're glad you guys are here. We're grateful to have you guys. I'm just going to read the Word, and then we can jump into what everybody is saying. We're not preaching. We're just discussing the Bible. All right. We're in Romans 1, verse 18 through 32. All right, I'll read from verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Because what may be known of God is manifest to them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds and four-footed animals and creeping things. Therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions, for even the women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of the error which was due. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind, to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. There are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. All right, floor is open. I think context-wise, we should go back to verse 16 and 17, for it says, For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And this is context in the sense that Paul is setting the foundation for what he's about to talk about from verse 18 to verse 32, which is we all are in need of the gospel and the good news that Jesus brings. And Paul sets it up by saying, the just shall live by faith, and then talks about the wrath of God. And it's interesting because I've been part of the youth group for quite some time. I haven't been there for like 2 years now, but most of the times we talk about it and people always bring up, say, yeah, we always discuss the love of God, but we never talk about the wrath of God. So here it is. Paul is saying, let's talk about it. Let's see what it is and why does it happen. And something that stood out to me, I was listening to John MacArthur. He was talking about like the punishment or the wrath of God that comes in this chapter is like the wrath of God in which he abandons his people. Says, I'm just gonna give you to what you want to do. Go do what you want to do, and then you face the consequences. You play the music, prepare to dance, and this is us dancing. Any thoughts? Any things that stood out to you guys?
That's really good.
I think, and then when you like move down, in verse 18 it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his internal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." And then I think this is part where people say, like, where is God? Like most people are like, well, I have never seen God. I've never had an encounter with God. And here's like, God has always been like visible. He's not hiding himself. He's like out in the public, like, here I am. You can see me. And then we as Christians, as believers, and as people, most of the times we just choose to ignore him and just be like, yeah, I feel like you talk to people and like, yeah, crazy things are happening in my life. Like, I got this job out of nowhere. I was doing these things and out of nowhere things are just happening. And then you're like, that's God. And like, nah, I feel like it's just my time for like good things to happen to me. Like, was it really though? Or was it just God be like, here you are, here I am. Let me help you out. Let me walk you through these things. And I think that's an interesting point because like sometimes we go through stuff or we talk to people and they're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel God. You talk to people like, I don't feel God. I don't see God. And then Paul is like, since the creation, God has always been visible. You can see him. He always makes himself manifest through his creation, which is us, which is rocks, which is plants, which is animals. Like everywhere you look, there's always that witness of like, there is a God. I thought that was interesting. Isaiah?
I think it's interesting if you look at the beginning of 24, 26, and 28, it all starts off with saying God gave them up to their own sin.
Mm-hmm.
And, like 24 says God gave them up to their own lusts. 26 says God gave them up to their dishonorable passions. And then 28 says God gave them up to a debased mind. And I think it's interesting that it's like we're, seeking sin, or mankind is, and God's kind of just saying, fine, if that's what you're going to do, like, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It reminds me of like being a parent and you are like, you have these guidelines or like.
Oliver's going to hear this episode in the future be like, whoa, Mom, it was my first year being a baby and you already put me out there.
I'm not saying this is Oliver, but I can just see that viewpoint where you have these protections around a child, and not that men and women as you're older are children, but I can tell him like not to put his hand on the stove, and I feel like we've heard that analogy before, like, no, it's hot, and you're protecting him, like take his hand off, pull him down off the stove, all that. But I think we can see here where God has that protection, but then as Isaiah said, the 3 times, verse 24, 26, and 28, God gave them up. He's like taking his hands off and saying, okay, touch the stove. Like you want it so badly. Yeah. Like, and it's not that God is harming them. You can see it's like their own sin and what they're choosing to follow.
Yeah. And I think that also like ties back to my points. Like God just like, you want that? Sure, have it. But there's consequences to what you want. And people are like, oh my gosh, God has abandoned. It's like, nah, you kind of left God to go follow your own desires. And now you're dancing in the song you wanted to play.
He warned them so many times.
Yeah, like he warns us so many times. And I feel like it's not just like unbelievers. I feel like in my own life, most of the times I'm like, man, I really want that thing. And I go do it. And then like after the thoughts, like, oh man, geez, what did I do? Like you start regretting things. And then you're like, if you're an overthinker like me, you're like, what's going to happen? Like, what's next? Like, all the consequences are playing in your head. Like, whoa, what if this happens? Then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Then it's just like, you're losing your mind, like, almost. Like, there's been times of this in the Old Testament, too, when God is just like, you guys want that? Sure, have it. And we're like, oh, my gosh, we need you back. God's like, here I am. I've always been here. I've always been around. Like, people wanted kings. God's like, I'll give you a king. I'm your king, but if you want a king, I'll give you those. And then people went to like horrible kings. They're like, God, please have us back. And then God's like, I've always been here. And I feel like this is the same thing for us. Like God is always available. God has always been visible. And as Christians, like I speak for myself, most of the time I'm just like, I see you. I know you're here. But my heart desires something else. And I'm going to do that something else instead of honoring you and being in your presence and being with you. And I feel like in the moment, that feels like the right choice. And then the afterthoughts is like, oh, but I've just sinned, so I can't return to God. And then that becomes days, that becomes like months of just like, but I did that one thing. And then certain just like, just devil just feeds on just like, yeah, dude, you just sinned. I don't think you're worthy to go to God at this point. So just continue sinning, or just don't pray, or don't ask for forgiveness. And then it's like, oh, dude, you just keep sinning, you keep asking for forgiveness. You might as well just accept this as you who you are. And Paul in Romans, like as you go through this book, it just tells you like that's not who you are. You're a new creation, and that's what's required of you. Ooh, wow, that was quiet. That's a lot of quietness. It's making me feel uncomfortable. It's like, oh.
You don't like the quiet?
Too much silence is... Nobody likes the silence.
Well, on that note of choosing other things, I feel like, especially in the West, or all around the world too, but we're like very distracted with short form content.
Uh-oh.
It's easy to pursue that. And I feel like God's voice is kind of being quieted, like especially in this day and age with constant access to distractions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to be like, where is God? Because we're not seeking him.
Yeah. And like in it says in verse 20 it says, so that they are without excuse. Like God is like visible, so people can't say, oh, where is God? Like he's given us all these things, so we can't be like, well, I didn't see you there, or you weren't there. It's like a stop sign. You don't see it. You say you didn't see it when the cop is right behind. It's like, oh, I didn't see what that was there. Like it's always been there. It's not like we just put it on like 20 seconds ago since we stopped you. It's always been there, but you chose to ignore it. And then you're facing the consequences. And God's like, I'm going to make sure I'm available so you can't say you weren't there for me. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm here for you so you can't be like, oh, but in my downtime, God, where were you? God's like, I was around. You just chose to pursue other things than pursue me and look out for me. And I think that's a good reminder to, like, always look out for signs, because God is always going to be around. Even when you're going through your tough times, God's just going to be like around everywhere. And it's us who have to go search for him, because he's always searching for us. But we have to go out and pursue God and pursue that relationship and be like, I see you. You've made all these great things around me. I'm going to choose to appreciate those things and worship you than worship the Creator. I think that's what he talks about, like as you go down. Any thoughts? Anything standing out?
I think verse 27 is interesting. I feel like I've heard people, especially today, people that are in the church saying, like, it never says in the Bible that, you know, being gay or being part of that community is wrong. But in 27 it says, And men likewise give up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves a due penalty for their error. Now, it's like interesting that they're struggling with that even way back in that day, that was still a prominent issue.
Yeah. And like on your thoughts, I think on Sunday, Pastor Kirk talked about it. Like he was talking about like what is sacred, what is moral, and just talks about just like man and woman married. That's it. That's all there is. And like the likeness of that is that that's compared to our relationship with God. And anything we do outside of our relationship with God that does not glorify Him, respect Him, and worship Him is immoral, which is we're cheating or we're committing adultery on God. We're doing those things, like create all these things that we as human beings like to worship. Like, oh, like if you go down, like it says like we made all these things. We made all these idols to worship. We worship the creation rather than worshiping the creator. And I think there's times where like, wow, God gave me this amazing skill, so I'm just gonna do the gift God gave me and not give glory to Him and just do that on my own and be like, oh yeah, God gave me this. So I feel like if I do it, then I'm glorifying Him. But then it just consumes us and becomes the idol in our life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have this Romans study from the Daily Grace Company.
Ooh.
But speaking of worship, it talks about how
Not sponsored though, right?
No,
Okay.
not sponsored. But it goes through Romans. But it talks about how it says we're again drawn to the truth that everyone worships something. And how many will refuse to worship God or even acknowledge Him, and they will replace their worship that should be given to God with worship of some other thing or person. And humans are worshipers. We all attribute praise and honor to something. We all have something in our lives that is the most important thing to us. Worship, however, should be reserved for God alone. But this isn't always the case. And it goes on. But I just think it's interesting. Like, it's a good reminder how we are, as humans, we are created to worship God, but our hearts are so easily distracted.
Yeah.
And that pull to worship something else.
Yeah, I feel like when you turn away from God, when you turn away from worshiping God, you find something else to worship because your heart is just empty. So you find something else to worship, and that could be anything that God has blessed you with. And just gravitate towards that and just start worshiping that. It might not be look like, oh my gosh, it's my gift. I'm worshiping. If that's where all your time is, if that's where all your mind is all the time, then that's your idol. That's where you're worshiping. That's where you put in your heart. That's where you put in your trust. And like I talk about this like in my own life as I examine my life sometimes when I'm doing deep thinking, which is rare. But when I'm doing deep thinking, I tend to look at my skills and the things that God has blessed me with and take an account of like what are these things in my life that I'm like, oh man, I just want to do that every day and forget God. Or like, what are these things that distract me from God? What are these things that take me away from take on my mind? What are the things that I worship, give glory to, rather than giving glory to God? Is it my good English? Is it my brand? Is it my humor because I'm the funniest person around? Or is it this and that? It's just
What did I read in here? Boastful?
check all these things. You're like, what distracts me? Is it my Catan with all the time? It's just like these things. Like, take account and see what are these things that take you away from God and keep your mind on those things. Is it work? Is it how I'm doing at work? Am I getting good numbers at work? Am I in the top 10? Am I in the top 20? Or is it, okay, God has given me this job and I'm going to be a good steward and work as hard as I can to the best of my ability. Not because I want to be in the top 10, but because God has called me to be a good steward in the place He's put me into.
Verse 21 is kind of like right what you're saying. It's talking about how they knew God and still they were just like, they didn't care.
Yeah.
They fled to other things.
Yeah. And like, it's not like we tend to look at like, since we have context, I think it's easier for us to look at the people in the Bible and be like, man, God was doing so many good things about like for you you kept like living him. Like, what's wrong with you? And then you're like, oh, well that's me, huh? I do the same thing to
Our
God.
youth leader, Riley, he always talks about, like, imagine if your whole life was written in a book and someone read it. Like, every mistake you've made, they'd probably be saying the same things. Like, wow, you're really stupid. Like, why'd you do that?
You're really dumb. You're so dumb. Yeah, but like, it's easy to just look at Old Testament and be like, man, these Israelites, man, they were horrible. God was like with them 24/7, but they just ignored him. And you look at your own life, like, God is also with you 24/7, and you just ignore him. Like, oh, I'm not righteous, huh? Anything standing out to you guys? I guess I talk too much. So like once I feel like there's silence, there's always this pressure on me like talk. So I don't want to take away from your time of talking.
Well, what you just said reminded me of what Kirk preached about on Sunday about how Moses went up on the mountain for 40 days and the Israelites, like, it was just 40 days and they're already like, okay, we got to worship something else. Like,
Yeah. So there's like that people always talk about that like empty hole in your heart that's only shaped for God. And once you empty that, you always try to find something to replace it, but it's never enough. But you're always searching for that thing. Like, let me plug this here. Oh, let me add something on it. Let me add something on it. But it never happens, and it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like Isaiah's talking? Or no? Do you guys want Isaiah to talk more?
Another thing on my mind. I feel like I'm talking a lot today.
It's the Kirstan and Kirstan show.
Where'd it go? Oh yeah, okay. So it talks about there's like so many sins that are listed, and it's easy to be like, dang, like that's a lot of like hopelessness. Mm-hmm. And it's almost easy to like think of other people I know someone who's done that, or I know someone who's done that. But I feel like the message he's trying to get across in this, if you go to chapter 2, verse 1, it says, therefore you have no excuse, oh man, everyone of you who judges. So like, he's like trying to paint this picture of like, we have all sinned. Like and he's listing all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I know there's Ray Comfort. He has his videos where he goes up to people and is like, oh, are you a good person? And, oh, yeah, like,
yeah,
I think I'm a good moral person. And then he talks about, like, well, have you lied? Have you cheated? Stuff like that. And it's like, I feel like those are, like, the softer, like, okay, I might have done, like, a white lie or something. And these are more intense.
Yeah.
But I'm, like, we're guilty of some of these as well.
Yeah.
And we're all deserving of that. Of God's wrath.
And I feel like it's like you said, like it's easy to just look at those and be like, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. Oh, I'm doing great. And then it's just like haters of God, violent, proud. Like, okay, this is getting personal now. But like Mark also talked about this in our last episode. It's like in his own journey with God, it's like he thought he was a good person. Like, oh, I'm a great person. I don't do this and do that. And then God revealed himself to him. And I was like, he had no excuse. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is what Paul is talking about. Like you just said, like Paul is like listing all these things. So nobody has an excuse to be like, oh, my sin wasn't on the list. So I'm free to go. I get the free to go card. But everybody has sinned. Everybody worships something if you're not worshiping God. And Paul is like, worship the Creator instead of worshiping the creation. Put your trust in him and just walk in his path because he's prepared them for you. He's given you all these guidelines. Like you parents said, like, man, I'm like there. I know sometimes like parents are like, don't do that. I'm like, just let them do it. But I don't have kids, so I'm like, I mean,
We try to take that approach most of the time.
they want sugar? Sure, I like sugar.
Maybe not that approach.
I'll give you sugar. What do you want? I have some candy. I'll give you them. You're not allowed to have candy? I got cookies, bro. I'll give you some. But, and in 24 it says, therefore God also gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. And most of the times, the sins that we commit as human beings are self-harming. Like, might be not in the 5 years, could be in the 10 years, but at some point, they'll hurt you as a person. They'll get you at some point in some ways or another. So it's just like, God is like, hey, you do that thing. All right, you're going to dishonor yourself. You're going to dishonor your own body. You're going to damage your own spirit. You're going to damage your own body, your own reputation, your own future. And like, God's like, I'm here, but okay. It's like, you see a lot of parents, like, the kids do something. Like, I don't know about American parents, but in Malawi, if a kid does something stupid, they start crying. Parents are just like, I told you not to do it. I'm not going to be like, oh, let me give her a hug. I told you not to do it. And most of the time, like, parents are just like, what are you crying about? You do something stupid, you start crying, like, what are you crying about? I'll give you something else to cry about. And like, okay, I need to shut up because I was told not to do that thing. So now I can't cry anymore because I brought that up on myself. So I feel like that God sometimes like, you wanted that, I'll give you that. But you face the consequences. And you might not enjoy them, but I'm here.
The thing
I'm
about
busy.
God is also when you face the consequences, he's always also there for you.
He's also there for you. Yeah. All right, Mr. Yadao. We haven't heard anything from you. Let's put you on the spot. We're almost 30 minutes in. We haven't heard anything.
We are 30 minutes.
30 minutes already?
Yeah, I know.
32 minutes.
Time flies.
Time flies when you're doing nothing. That was for me too. I don't know. I mean, comedic timing. I'm very good at that.
Well, I kind of want to go back to the beginning. You had mentioned something. I mentioned about like how so often we'll like go through these phases of where we're not feeling God.
Yeah.
Like, but in 17 it talks about it's from faith for faith, as it is written, and that's like it just reminds me of like how like even back then, but now we're so just into things that we want now, and that we're not willing to sit and wait like for God, wait on God, and have faith that He'll show. A lot of times when we're like, yeah, well, I don't feel Him. Well, then just wait like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
You'll probably hear from Him. But that was one thing that stood out because so often I'm like, man, I don't hear anything from God, or I just read this and I don't know what He's trying to stand out, what He's trying to have stand out for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll read it one more time.
Verse 17.
Yeah.
For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith.
And we're supposed to live by faith. So like we're not supposed to see God. Like we're not supposed to seek those signs from God.
Yeah.
Those who seek signs is an adulterous generation.
Yeah.
It says. And I think a lot of times we seek signs instead of like
Seeking God.
and looking up to see what He has around us.
I think that's something like the thought you're talking about, like I want it now, is something I didn't know I struggled with until I moved here, and I wanted the Canon T7 camera, but I didn't have the money, so I asked my parents, Kirk and Kim, like, can you get me can you spot me some money? I'll pay you back. Like, no. Like, you want it? Wait until you have the money to get it. And that was a struggle for me, because I was like, I want it now. But then it's like, no, you don't just want it now and get it now. Just because you want it doesn't mean you need it or you should get it at the moment. And it's the same thing like with us in our relationship with God's like, God, I want this thing. And the guy's like, wait. And then we hear that way. It's like silence. Like, oh, he's not around then I'm just going to do what I want. But God's like, just wait. I have something better for you. And that's what Paul is talking about. It's like we run away from God. We seek these things to worship. We leave God's presence. And then we go and look for other things. God was just like, just give me some time. I have a plan for your life. I have a path that I've prepared for you to walk into. Why can't you just walk into that even when it's hard? And like Kirk talked about on Sunday, he was talking about like when people would ask him, like what got him through like hard times when it was like low, and it's just like I just cling to God. And I feel like most times when we like going through stuff and we cling to God, and then it's like, God, you're taking too long to solve my problem. I'm gonna find something else to solve my problem. And then we leave God and we're like, God, why? Why did you let me live? And God's like, you have choice. You have free will to leave me whenever you want.
You walked away.
Yeah, you walked away from me. I didn't walk away from you. I'm still here. And like you also talked about faith, and like a perfect example for like I've heard with this like the faith thing, walking by faith, is like parents and their kids. Like if you see a kid at a park and they don't know what they're doing, they'll look for their parents and they'll ask for their hand, like hold me and like lead me somewhere. It's like that's what we're supposed to do with God. Just hold God's hand and you'll take you where you're supposed to be. It's like, we're going here. Because Dad doesn't know. Just hold the dad's hand, the mom's hand, and just walk you there. And it's the same thing with God. Like, we want things now. We want it now. We want it now. And God's like, just hold my hand and be patient. You get what you deserve, not what you want. I'll get you what I have in plans for you, not what you want at the time. Alexander, any thoughts?
Just off of that, I just think about like kind of the image that draws like God, like of him being like the ultimate heavenly father, and like him being that dad that's like it's gonna take time for you to do this, and then also like sometimes like our parents, they might ask us to do things and they'll say like we don't always learn when we have someone holding our hand. Like God is always there to be there with us, but sometimes like he wants us to walk in that and grow through it, and him to guide us, but not necessarily to be there like 100. Like he's gonna be there 100% of the time, but he's wanting you to come back to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's not just to rely on me, know that I'm good.
And in verse 28, it says, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting. And then you go all the way down to verse 32. It says, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. It's like sin in life, like in our own lives, when it's unchecked, it just spreads around to the people around us, to family and friends, to the community, and just damages everything. And I feel like this is where having great friends that like keep you in check is good, because like when you do something stupid, like that was stupid, I wouldn't do that again. And you're like, oh, I thought you were just gonna be like, wow, dude, that was cool. And, nah, that wasn't cool. And I think the whole point of this is just like Paul is saying, you have no excuse to leave God and go pursue anything else, because he's proven himself. He's been consistent in your life, even if you don't know it. He's been consistent in your life, and this is who he is, and he's proved it to you. He's proven to generations before you. He's just like a little blip in the timeline, and he's done it throughout the whole time to other generations. There's nothing special about you. There's nothing new under the sun. And this is where you are. And you have no excuse. Like Kirstan said in verse 1 of chapter 2, therefore you are inexcusable, O man, wherever you are who judge. For in whatever you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice indecent things. Like, you might be like, oh, I don't boast, I'm not prideful, but I'm just better than you. It's like, that's just pride right there. I don't do all these things, but I do these things. But it's like, no, you have no excuse, everybody, but to live by faith. And that's the high standard that God has called us, to live and to trust in Him all the days of our life and to worship Him.
So I'm going to be honest. When I read what we were going to talk about today, I was like, oh man, that's a tough passage.
Okay.
But I spent some time with the Lord this morning, and it was really cool how He spoke to me, because it is a heavy passage, and I feel like it's easy to walk away feeling like, wow, this world is so dark and there's so much sin and we deserve God's wrath, and
Come now.
that's kind of where it's ending, is
Come cleanse us now.
we're without excuse. It kind of feels like this no hope situation. But what God kind of worked in my heart, He brought to mind that the song, it says, my sin was great, your love was greater. And how in Romans chapter 3, verse 23, it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. As we talked about earlier, there's that truth, and it feels like that's the end. But it says, and are justified by His grace as a gift. There is hope through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. It's this chapter, we're just talking about this portion right here in this chapter, but how God, I was just oh no, we're going to talk about such deep things, but how God actually brought joy to my heart to know okay, this is such deep sin, or so disheartening, but to know but God's love is even greater than that. I don't know. It was really cool. I felt encouraged this morning. I was I was not expecting to walk away feeling wow, God loves us so much that even in the middle of all this, He still loves us and still calls us to Him.
Yeah. And I think Paul does a good job of setting the foundation before he tells us you need God. It's
Right.
okay, this is who you are. This is who we are as human beings. We're backbiters, we're haters of God, we're deceitful, we're envy people. But here's the good news, right? It's you're this bad, but here's the good news, right? I feel like I do the same with people. It's when people come into the store and hey, my phone's broken. I'm okay, your phone's broken, but here's the good news. I could get you a new phone, but it's going to cost you. God doesn't do that. But
Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah, it's Paul gives us the bad news, which is the mirror to ourselves. This is who you are, but this is who you can be. Or this is who you should be. This is what God has called you to be, but this is who you are. So it's not like Paul talks about, I tell you all these things so you can't be that wasn't me. It's Paul's everybody's like that. Even me, Paul, the guy writing this letter, sounding all smart. I wasn't like that in the beginning, but look at me now. God has done all these things. So to your point, it's God, there's the wrath of God, which we have to discuss, but there's also the greater love of God, which we'll always discuss, which is He loves you so much that He let His Son come die for you so that your relationship with Him could be repaired, so that you could grow closer to God, that you could spend eternity with Him. I feel like I'm willing to do a lot of things for people, but there's always nah, I'm not doing that. But God's yeah, I know you've left me, you've left my presence, you've sinned against me, but I'm going to do you one up. As you Americans say, I'm going to do you one up and send my Son to die for you. I'm going to be better than you and just send my Son to die for you so you can be saved and return back to me. And even with the wrath of God, it's the same idea for God. It's you experience these things. God lets all these things happen to you so you can return back to him. God gives up his only son so he can die so you can return back to him. The whole idea is he's pursuing a relationship with us. And in a relationship, it's two people, it's two parties involved. They both have to pursue each other. One person can't be pursuing all the time. Like people always talk about meet me in the middle, but God's like has done all the work. You don't even have to meet him in the middle. You just have to be like, hey God, I see all your work you've done in my life. Here I am, use me. Here I am, take my life. Here I am, I give my life to you. And that's all you have to do. Isaiah, thoughts? Did I steal your thoughts?
Oh, no.
Okay, then you have different thoughts. Good. What do you think? I'm not looking at you. I'm waiting for you to talk.
I got nothing right now.
Oh, you don't have one right now. Alexander, any thoughts? Mr. Yadao, any thoughts? It's 45 minutes already. Wow.
How long do we go for?
As long as people can talk.
Do we want to talk more about how we see God in creation?
Yeah. Start us off,
Any
Miss
thoughts?
Yadao. Any thoughts on
thoughts?
how we see God in creation?
Because I feel like we touched a lot on the.
That's kind of. I was looking at something in verse 20. It says, "Ever since the world was created, it has been possible to see the qualities of God that are not seen." I'm talking about his eternal power and about the fact that he is God. Those things can be seen in what he has made. So people have no excuse for what they do. And I think that is like connecting, like he says it clearly in his scripture, and he's said it clearly from the time,
Mm-hmm.
and also like from the beginning of time. And with that, like you also see there's also multiple sides to that. There's the wrath, and there's also that love that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
On that note that you said about wrath and love, I thought it was cool because in this it says the wrath of God and the love of God are not opposed to each other. Because I think we often think like, oh, it's like two separate things, completely opposite. It says instead they come together in the work of Christ to pay for our salvation. I thought that was really neat. Like they're both present in Christ.
Okay, here's something that just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm getting American, aren't I? Just hit me like a ton of bricks, bruv. Like, here's a question in verse 32 that we can ask ourselves, which is, am I getting desensitized by my friends, by the media, by my ignorance, not ignorance, but by me ignoring God? Am I getting desensitized? Which is like something that our church talks about. It's like when you ignore God's word, the voice doesn't get louder, it gets quieter. And like, just hear me, because it's an experience for myself. This is something I've been through. This is something I go through sometimes. Like, my heart just becomes numb to things. Like, I do things, I'm like, I didn't feel any different. And then there's times I do the same thing, I'm like, I don't think I should be doing that. And the times I go through life where like, I didn't feel any difference. I didn't think that bothered my spirit. And I was talking to someone, they were like, yeah, ever since I gave my life to Christ, some things just give the ick to my spirit. I was like, okay. They're like, yeah, ever since I gave my life to Christ and I was transformed, like, just some things just don't sit well in my spirit, and I just don't do them. I feel like as new creations, that's our calling. It's like things that were before, things that we used to do before should feel different and should be different to our spirits and should speak to us differently. But we, like, I, speaking for myself again, it's like sometimes I'm just like, is that wrong? Was I wrong? Or was that a wrong thing to do? Because my spirit is numb at that point. It just doesn't feel any different. And like, I think that's like a wake up call sometimes. Like, why wasn't that? Like, why did I feel convicted by that? Or why wasn't that bothering me? And I think it's like 32 says, like, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. And this comes to the like point as I was making like earlier in the episodes, like we like there's this constant need for approval, like when to the like the sins Paul has talked about. It's like you see your friend being bossed, like, bro, just sometimes you just need that self-talk, you need the confidence. It's like, nah, you don't need to brag. You don't need to be prideful. Sometimes just like, oh, whoa, dude, you deserve that. It's like, did I though? Or are you just saying that because you're my friend? Like, you're just not checking your spirit. Like John Chris said, check your heart. That song. But it's a wake-up call to myself, too. It's like sin left unchecked in my own life just keeps growing. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't die. As long as it's not checked, it's just gonna keep growing. It's just gonna keep disturbing my spirit. It's gonna keep affecting the relationship I have with God. And sometimes that comes from reading the Word, that I need the Word of God to speak to me and like slap me in the face. Sometimes it's my friends. I'm not saying you guys should ever slap me in the face, but you could give me that slap in the face kind of talk. It doesn't have to be like, I'll slap you in the face. No. Then that's going to arouse my anger, and then that's a problem. So don't do that, please. But I think checking in with friends and checking them out, like, hey, dude, what's going on? Why did you do that? Like, I think that's what friends are for. And having friends that, like, yeah, in the moment, that wasn't the best, like, reaction. In the moment, what you did wasn't the right thing. Even sometimes it might hurt to have that conversation, like Kirstan saying, like, this passage is heavy, but just because it's heavy doesn't mean we don't have to talk about it. Just because it's heavy, we have to skip it. It's heavy because we need to talk about it. We need to check our hearts, and we need to check our relationship with God and be like, where do I stand with you, and where's my heart in relation to what you're teaching me throughout the Bible, in relation to what you guys have already talked about in relation to your relationship with God. Do you have things in your life that you worship other than worshiping the Creator? Do you have things in your life that desensitize you to the presence of God? Do you have things in your life that distract you from God? Do you have things in your life that you approve of your friends even though you know it's wrong? Those things, like, okay, then let's talk about them. Let's have the conversation, and let's see how we can grow in our relationship with God. To answer your question on things that remind us of God, most times for me, it's kids, because they're just pure. So, like, you see them, like, they have no interior motive. If they're smiling, they're just smiling. It's not like, oh, I want you to get me this. It's just like, okay, I see your face, I smile. If they're crying, it's not like I'm crying because it's just like, that's just what's happening in my heart right now. There's no in between. There's no like deceit. There's like just a pure heart, like joy. If they're like happy, they're just happy. If they're sad, they're just sad. It's not like I'm sad because you did these things to me like 5 years ago. I'm just sad because you didn't give me the banana cut up right now. And then like 2 minutes later, they're like all happy again. It's just like that's things that's like, that's our relationship with God. Like, you wrong him so many times, but when you go back to him, like, he's happy to see you again. It's like, people give this example with dogs too. I don't know about American dogs, but I'm not gonna say this far. But in Malawi, we don't have dogs as pets. So like, you could, like, you see them, like, you can hit them now. They come around the house. They just go around the house. They come back to you. They're not like mad at you. They're just happy to see you again. So it's like, that's the relationship we have with God. It's like, he's always happy to see us back, even though we've wronged him so many times. He's always like, I'm glad you're here. It's like the prodigal son. It's like, I'm glad you're here. And those are some things that just remind me of like the love of God. And sometimes you see a waterfall, just like, okay, that's just pretty. Like, yeah, that's just like something God's just like, it's a rainbow. I'm gonna just drop that in there so my people could enjoy. It's a fat pig. That's cute. I'm just gonna drop that in there so my people can enjoy. Those are just a few things you look at, just like this. Sometimes they bring you joy. Sometimes you're like, I don't care. But sometimes like, this is God's work, and those are just some things for me. Isaiah, what are some things that remind you of God? I think that was a question, right? I didn't ask it. Kirstan did.
Along those lines.
Don't look at me.
Well, you're the one who just asked me the question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Cool.
All right, so tell us.
I think like I don't know, like the wind.
The
reminds me
wind.
of God.
Because of your hair?
No.
Like, the wind.
No, the wind always blows my hair in my face and I can't see. But
Oh, really?
yeah. No, but I think I don't know, because it's just like something that you can't understand really. Like it's just there and it's powerful and it's I don't know. It's a weird feeling. Like you can't like trying to explain wind to someone who's never experienced it before or seen it before. Like I don't know if that's impossible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Like, I was thinking, like, my own car, sometimes I'm driving on the highway, I'm like, why is my car swerving so much? Like, the wind is so strong outside. It's like, why is my...
Sure.
Just bad
It's not bad driving. Alexander, what about you? Let's move on. Alea's not here. Why are we talking about bad driving?
no.
If I'm gonna compare him to like something in creation, I would say the ocean, because it's like it's very deep. It's always having things newly discovered, and it's very powerful. Like you can have, I don't know, like in Hawaii, you could go out surf somewhere, and you could be out there one day, and it feels like whatever. It's a lake out here, and you go out another day, and you're like, man, I'm getting hit by a semi truck, and I'm still under the water. You know, and it's just very powerful and unexplainable, and yeah. Cool.
All right, the other Yadaos, the two Yadaos.
Well. Well, when I first asked that question, like, any thoughts on what it is? I was thinking about how, like, other cultures, like, everywhere around the world, there is belief in a god or gods, God, right? And I feel like that's kind of like, it's showing how there is evidence of a higher power, and people are always seeking that. And like, but something that reminds me of God's design from beginning, I guess, is like mountains. I think specifically of different cultures where like they would often go up, like even in Hawaii, like they have the mountains are considered like super sacred, and like that's where the gods are. And I just think it's interesting. And even in the Bible, like Moses went up on Mount Sinai, and the Mount of Olives is really significant. Hence Oliver.
Ooh. Well, if there's ever wondering where the name came from, just be like, hey, listen to our podcast, bro.
But it's just neat. Like, God even says, like, your faith can move mountains. Like, it seems so big and so impossible and so, like, just massive. Like, I'm gonna climb that what? Like, but like, how our faith can move mountains is pretty neat. I don't know.
All right, Mr. Dow. Closing thoughts? Anybody? Closing thoughts? Closing lessons? Closing
Concerns?
concerns? Silence is deafening. Mrs. Yadao, closing thoughts? I see you flipping through your notes.
I don't know.
Maybe tell the people to subscribe to our channel. How about that?
Subscribe to the Campfire Podcast.
That's a closing thought. What's that? Oh. Yeah. I mean, that looks like the end of the Bible study. Thank you to the Yadaos for showing up. Oh, the Yadaos showed up today. That's exciting. Thank you to Isaiah for showing up. Thank you guys for showing up to listen to our show. As Mrs. Yadao said, subscribe to the Campfire Podcast. Drop us a comment. If you're just finding us now, we have like 30 episodes dropped.
Yeah,
So
this is episode 31.
this is episode 31, so you can go back and listen to other other episodes. This is gonna be on YouTube. If you're already watching it on YouTube, here it is. Thank you for listening to our show. Thank you for your comments, your hearts, your likes on Instagram. Thanks for following us. Give us some topic ideas. I think our heads we're scrambling, so we always need topic ideas. Thank you very much for coming. Please tell our subscribers to subscribe. The two of you, that guy, no, he already exists on this channel, so you two should tell people to subscribe to our show. Ooh.
Subscribe to the Campfire Podcast.
Whoop.
All right, there we have it.
Thanks for having us.